Good evening and welcome to another episode discussing Palestine and the current or the continued genocidal campaign by Israel on Gaza. As I speak to you today, it's already morning time in the Netherlands and The Hague, where South Africa will be presenting its case to the International Court of Justice or the World Court. And this is a very important step in beginning to address the ongoing genocide that has been ongoing now for 94 days without a stop. The Genocide Convention is an important convention that has been adopted after the circumstances of the Second World War. Also, during that same period, the Fourth Geneva Convention, which was adopted in 1949, both were an outcome of an international community that adopted a set of standards, international standards, to prevent the atrocities that has been committed in the Second World War. Just to understand the procedure or the steps that will be undertaken in relations to the South Africa case, which has been supported so far by a number of countries. So South Africa submitted the case on December 29th, which is just the last month. And then Israel will appear in front of the court today and tomorrow, today in relations to the 11th of January and the 12th of January. Now, the court is made of 15 sitting judges. And for a case to win the majority vote, you would have to have 8 judges out of the 15 to vote on the matter. And as such, this would be that the court determines that a genocide is being committed in Gaza. Now, the order from the court is expected to be issued within a week of end of January period. So we might have a period after the presentation to the court. Now, the court will issue a determination on the merits of South Africa's case. And if the determination has been arrived at by the court, then the determination will say that a genocide against the Palestinians is ongoing, meaning that the court will determine that is to be the case. Assuming that the court, 8 judges vote for it or more, even though that a number of individuals looking at the makeup of the court say that it might not gain the 8 votes, and that's a possibility. So we're not saying that the outcome is foregone. Assuming that the court issues such a determination, then what the outcome of this, that all of the contracting parties, there's 153 states that are signatories to the Genocide Convention. And if the determination is issued by the court, then the contracting parties are obliged under the Genocide Convention to prevent Israel's genocide against the Palestinians, meaning that they are responsible in acting to prevent the genocide from taking place and from continuing unfolding, which will immediately result in a call for an immediate unconditional ceasefire, while Israel is actually will be taken to task for the determination of genocide. More importantly, in relations to the court determination, would be that the articles of the genocide says that complicity in genocide is punishable. This would mean that the United States, the Biden administration, might be stands to be actually charged and being held responsible for complicity in the acts of genocide that are being committed. And I want to bring this just to understand what we are speaking about in this case. Under the Genocide Convention, genocide includes any of the acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, religious, racial, or religious group. So Israel has committed several acts of genocide in Gaza, including, and I'm using the uh, piece that has been developed by Visualizing Palestine, a very, very important outlet that I encourage people to use. So Israel has killing members of the group. We could see that already 30,000 plus in Gaza, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. Palestinians in Gaza are facing all types of injuries, bodily injuries, but also suffer from prolonged mental impacts of 17 years of siege. Also, a number of almost 8 other major campaigns and bombings. So that's also something that the Gazans are facing. And deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. So again, this points to the fact that Israel is actually pursuing such a policy. It's also the Genocide Convention. It says incitement to genocide is punishable under the Genocide Convention. And also genocide scholars have reviewed statements by Israeli government officials and stated that they are fully espousing genocidal intent. So incitement to genocide is punishable likewise. So it does not have to be only that genocide is committed, but incitement to genocide likewise is punishable. So some of the statements that we can point to from the Israeli leadership. This is Israeli Minister of Defense, Gallant. He said there will be no electricity, no food, no fuel. We are fighting human animals. So again, just looking at the phrasing that is being said, says there will be no electricity, no food, no fuel, and then saying we are fighting human animals. Now, Gallant and other Israelis, as well as anyone who supports Israel, can use any type of descriptions. We call them any type of description, but the description in here, calling them animals, and we are acting accordingly, meaning that they have removed the Palestinians from the category of human and legitimizing their intent of committing acts of genocide against them. Also, the Herzog, the current Israeli president, he said it's an entire nation out there that is responsible. So that's not making a distinction between armed individuals, which international law regulations allow a state to engage the armed oppositions, those who are opposing, whether it's regular military or irregulars, a guerrilla group or not. But in here, Herzog, the president, saying an entire nation out there that is responsible. So he's assigning responsibility to all the Palestinians in Gaza, and thus not making a distinction which international law requires. Also, within banners that were placed in various Israeli cities, says victory, zero residents in Gaza. How do we bring the question? How do we bring zero residents in Gaza other than genocide Transfer is also an act of genocide. Ethnic cleansing is an act of genocide. Destroying the life, the capacity or the possibility of life in Gaza is acts of genocide. So this again would be the case that saying zero residents in Gaza, which is something that we see in banners that were placed in different Israeli cities. Now, Ben-Gvir, the current Israeli Minister of National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir, said the only thing that needs to enter Gaza are hundreds of tons of explosives from the Air Force, not an ounce of humanitarian aid. So the removal, the restrictions, the limitation on humanitarian aid, and we already saw that the defense ministers say no food, no water, no medicine. And in here is also restricting or calling not an ounce of humanitarian aid needs to be entered. These are political figures. These are leaders that are stating these statements with the intent to punish all the Palestinian population in Gaza without distinction between the armed groups versus the civilians, between those who have the capacity to fight and engage in fighting versus the population in general that is being committed to genocide. Also, Ariel Kalner, member of the Israeli Knesset, he says right now, one goal, Nakba. A Nakba that will overshadow the Nakba of 48. Nakba in Gaza and Nakba to anyone who dares to join. Now, this is also an interesting element. Israel denies that there was a Nakba. Actually, it's illegal to teach about the Nakba in Israel proper. Arabs could be held responsible. There were curriculum is prohibited from actually mentioning the Nakba. There were students in Israeli universities, Arab students, that wanted to organize events to speak about the Nakba, and it was actually prevented and prohibited. So the interesting in here, while the Nakba is denied by Israel, in here a Knesset member is actually not only affirming the Nakba of 48, but also boasting about another Nakba to be undertaken in Gaza, which also point again in here is intent to commit genocide, which we are looking in relations to these statements. Now we get to Benjamin Netanyahu himself. He says, we will turn them into rubble. I'm telling the people of Gaza, get out of there now, because we are about to act everywhere with all our force. Now we also have another statement that we're not intent on accuracy, or not having goal of accuracy, but destruction. And we already see the type of destruction visited, including the destructions of housing complexes, hospitals, schools, regular businesses, even areas with farms. Large number of mosques have been destroyed, and so far also 105 journalists. So in essence, in here, what we find is the intent to commit act of genocide by the political leaders at the helm of the Israeli state expressing this. Now, a recent video showed Palestinians that were again stripped of their clothes, paraded, and in essence, as a way of literally dehumanizing them. The statement about Palestinians being animals, and then you have the Israeli military that have put out some of these images and some of these photos of Palestinians. These are civilian, stripped of their clothes, paraded in various settings and places, with often a claim that is attached that these are supposedly Hamas members or part of, quote, militant terrorist groups. That's the Israeli framing. Time and time again, people pointed out that these photographs, these individuals that are stripped of their clothes, that are paraded in their underwear, are literally individuals, everyday civilian individuals in Gaza, teachers, doctors, shopkeepers, and so on. In essence, Israel wants to demonstrate to its own public that they are successful in executing the war effort in Gaza, while in reality, they are targeting civilian population with the intent of emptying Gaza of its civilian population in this sense. And these images again point to this effort being undertaken, which is an act of genocide. Again, and other images of Palestinians that are stripped. Many of our colleagues in Bosnia reminded us that these images are resembling the Bosnian genocide of men separated from women and kids, taken out, stripped of their clothes, sometimes also being subjugated to taunting, to abuse, to torture, to cigarette butts being put on their bodies. All this is reminiscent of the Bosnian genocide, and in essence, the images of previous genocide points to this. And the Genocide Watch put the Palestinians in Gaza are at the almost level 8 in the 10 stages of genocide. So literally, we are staring at an unfolding genocide, reaching the 8th level of the 10 stages of genocide. Now, what's on a positive sense in relations to the Israeli society, because we don't want to be all inclusive, the Knesset member Ofer Kasef, he actually joined the lawsuit against Israel in the International Court of Justice, the World Court, and signed the petition. Now, several Knesset members have condemned his actions, and there's actually a call for his expulsion. He has been facing an avalanche of all types of racist statements. Now, this is also not unique. There are a number of individuals in Israel, a journalist, a teacher, a principal of school, anyone that has dared to speak or to challenge or to express any opinion outside of the full nationalist march toward genocidal campaign against Gaza is faced with this avalanche of attacks that are directed at them. So this is what we see, that there is within the Knesset, at least Ofer Kasef has expressed his support for the South Africa case. Now, Mersheimer, who's really one of the political scientists in the United States, he said, I believe Israel was guilty of serious war crimes, but not genocide, during the first 2 months of the war, even though there was a growing evidence of what Parlov has called genocidal intent on the part of Israeli leaders. But it became clear to me after the 24th to 30th November period, the 2023 truce ended, and Israel went back on the offensive, that Israeli leaders were in fact seeking to physically destroy a substantial portion of Gaza's Palestinian population. So Mersheimer again is saying that initially he believed it was war crimes, and after this period, after the end of the truce that lasted a number of days between the 24th and 30th, that it became clear to him that the intent of Israeli leaders is literally to remove and to destroy a substantial portion of Gaza population. You also have the statement from a number of Israeli politicians of desiring that only about 200,000 population in Gaza to remain, and where almost 2 million are to be forced out, with the discussion of the so-called transfer, which I have framed it as, quote, the humanitarian ethnic cleansing that is being discussed, with some actually saying to transfer, ethnically cleanse. Again, I'm using transfer, not my language, but what is often in the Israeli discourse is ethnic cleansing, an ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians, and send them to the Congo or Chad or another place in Africa. So there is these public discussions that are being put forth, which again violates the Fourth Geneva Convention on the one hand, but also the Convention on Genocide. Recently, we had the group that is puts out these billboards under the title "Jew Belong" as a form of trying to challenge anti-Semitism, which often actually targets and directs its attention to Palestinians, pro-Palestinians. Is the statement, which was immediately withdrawn after people pointing out to the fact that it's actually pointing to the language of genocide being almost a common language. It says, trust me, if Israel wanted to commit genocide in Gaza, it could. The fact that somebody actually thinks that this is a defense of genocide in the middle of a country that is facing genocide suit, and the discourse is focusing on genocide, this was a bad attempt to reframe the discussions and the debate, and the Jew Belong actually removed this immediately, because in essence it focused on genocide that is being undertaken rather than their attempt to try to, quote, counter anti-Semitism, with the focus of the anti-Semitism campaign is to target pro-Palestine activism on campus, to try to engage in doxing and all types of demonization. So again, when we're talking about the case of South Africa will be discussed as literally within this morning in The Hague, and we will wait and see the outcome of the case as it comes into the court. I see that there's a question here: what could be the reason that Israel agrees to defend itself in court, reversing a decades old policy of boycotting the UN's top court and its 15 elected judges? The thing is that the reason that Israel possibly opted or decided to engage the court, it's that the decision, if it comes out from the court, if a determination is made by the court whether Israel is present to defend itself or not, the mere determination by the court makes it an obligation upon the contracting parties. Now, the 153 contracting parties are obligated by the Genocide Convention to actually engage in steps to prevent the genocide, which means that Israel might continue to unleash its violence on the Palestinians. It might continue to bomb, but now that this determination will result in 153 countries being directly responsible to take actions. What type of actions? It could be possible that some of the countries that have joined the case will seize and restrict the assets of Israel that is present within their own territories. It would be that any action directed at Israeli, whether military or Israeli trade coming in, will be also seen as legitimate, because it's having a court determination that is genocide unfolding. It also becomes possible that that legal cases could be filed against individuals in various Israeli individuals in various countries, and therefore it becomes actionable. I think in here, parts of Europe, parts of Africa, part of Latin America, part of Asia, the contracting parties now are obligated to act and listen to these cases. Now, in the area of complicity, now if the court determines, now the legal bar also can bring complicity into work. So the United States have been aiding and abetting, sending weapons. Would U.S. weapon manufacturers be also subject to legal actions and subject to determination that they're held responsible? Even if it's not in the immediate, the determination creates an atmosphere that would not be defensible for anyone that is engaging with Israel. Also, we have a campaign that has been taken place to give a red card to Israel in relations to sports. South Africa, during the anti-apartheid period, the international sport bodies, including the Olympics, the FIFA, and so on, imposed sanctions on the participation of South Africa's sport teams into the global arena. So that also a determination by the court would make it the natural next step of seeking all of these international bodies to actually restrict Israel's participation. So as such, Israel is considering this case by South Africa very seriously, to the level of actually coming and trying to defend itself and to see if this effort will be derailed, to be prevented from moving forward. Also, there is a striking, again, here's a statement by Abd Muhi Amin. There's a striking parallel between the calling of the Palestinians as animals to the labeling of the Tutsis as cockroaches during the Rwandan genocide. Every genocide that we could actually examine and look at, there is always a part of it is to dehumanize, to create almost a caricature, to remove the similarity between the group that is to be targeted versus the individuals that are engaging in the targeting. So dehumanization, using in here animals, cockroaches, rats, and so on, all these are normative patterns. And there is nothing, again, mysterious. These are patterns in genocides, and political leaders begin to use this language in order to legitimize and rally the national sentiments in their country, as well as their military, to engage in this wanton massive violence. So this is, again, would be the case that we have in here. It says, will the judges act independently, or do they take out orders from their governments? And that's where the big question, that judges are, in essence, respond to their governments. But we do have cases where the judges actually act independent, or at least do not adhere to the strict directives from their governments. If it's left to these judges on their own, I think we have a very strong possibility of a determination of genocide being arrived at. If it is left to governments, I think we will have a very difficult road ahead, and it might not reach the determination. However, I think in here, the international system as we see it today, if the International Court of Justice, the World Court, abdicate its legal responsibility as the highest legal body in the world, if it does not reach at a determination of genocide, I do think that the international order, as we see it, speak with in terms of the United Nations, would possibly face an irreversible damage, in the sense that the court is witnessing an unfolding genocide, with some of the doctors coming to testify, some of the journalists that have witnessed firsthand what has taken place, some of immediate responses. This will actually result in a major damage to the standing of the court. The United Nations is already under a weakened position as a result of the U.S. using its veto power to prevent a call for ceasefire. And the United States, again, stands isolated from the rest of the world. It's still powerful, but isolated in the sense that the world community in general have voted time and time again in the General Assembly to support Palestinian aspiration for self-determination, for independence, for end of settlements. But when it comes to the Security Council, the United States have always acted to protect Israel and create or use its veto power in this sense. So it's again, the court is possibly the last resort right now of remedying a collapse of the world order and seeing the double standard, the hypocrisy, the lack of fairness and justice toward the Palestinians. And the world again pointed to the contradictions of how it treated the Ukraine, especially the Western world, and the urging of the world community. Just we're reminded in terms of all these sports, athletic competitions, the unfurling of the Ukrainian flag, allowing people to wear insania in support of the Ukraine, asking the captains to wear a solidarity with the Ukraine, moments of silence, all of the, even in some of the music or the Oscar awards and so on, allowing for Zelensky to come on screen and basically speak to the wide audience on TV, while the opposite in relations to Palestine, so much so that individuals who express solidarity with Palestine were subject to sanctions, that especially in the French context, football players with Muslim background wanted to express solidarity. There were sanctions by the sports authorities. So we could see that the contradictions, the double standard, the empty rhetoric about human rights, about international law, and so on, the International Court of Justice, the World Court right now, really stands, if it's actually going to defend the moral, ethical standards that are supposed to be at the foundation of the Geneva Convention, of the United Nations Charter of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the Genocide Convention, or is going to be, again, a rubber stamp for the world order according to the United States and Israel. And as such, the international legal system as we know it basically is coming to an end. What the consequences of this is the following: that no one can actually take anyone else to task at this point. And the world system as we know it is basically the strong devour the weak, and there is no standards by which. And as such, this is what this case in front of the World Court is about. It's not only about Palestine and Palestinians in Gaza, which it is, but it's about also the world order and the world international legal system that has been stitched together from World War II until now. And I am very cognizant and aware, and not going to be sugarcoating, that the world system has been under duress for some time. The United States been one of the primary violator with the invasion of Iraq, invasion of Afghanistan, the wanton violence that has been committed. And I don't want to make people forget that we still have Guantanamo Bay as a place where people are held outside of any legal system, outside of international law, outside of the United Nations system, outside of the US legal system, outside of any type of legal framework that is defensible. So I'm not in here uh, uh, not aware or want to defend the international system as the ideal. It's an imperfect system, but even the imperfection of the system is actually at the hook at this particular time in relations to what is occurring in Palestine as we speak. So again, is Israel pressuring? There will be pressuring. I think their country, they represent countries, and the states will be susceptible to this. So I'm not saying that it's a done deal with the judges voting and acting of their conscience. I do think that pressure will be mounted, and I would say a full press by the United States, by Western European countries, by major states and Israel in order to derail and prevent this determination. Because such a determination literally is an overwhelming reordering of the rules of the war against the Palestinians, which has been going on from 48 till now. So this determination will alter this relationship, and Israel will no longer be seen or considered as defending itself. It will be a state that is determined to be engaged in genocide, and every consequence from that point on will be subject to the rules and regulations of dealing with a pariah state that is committing genocide and is to be held responsible for those acts. So that's why this determination is very important. Yes, the final nail in the coffin of the post-World War II supposed international order. I fear that if the ICJ refuses to act, i.e. to demand Israel stop assault, the atrocities will worsen. For sure, it will worsen, but for anyone that is considering the international order system, where the rising of China, the power and the position of Russia, no one should actually confuse themselves that this determination will mean that the international system that we speak of, not fondly, but we speak of as a system, imperfect that it is coming to an end. And I do think that we have to begin to reconsider and rethink the relationship with the international law and international order as is. If Israel is allowed to be outside of this order, it allows to engage in genocide, then what would prevent anyone and any state or any actor from continuing or wanting to engage in genocide? Lastly, is a big question that also is to be asked of the Arab and Muslim states. There are 57 Muslim majority states, and the Arab state as well, 22 Arab states. What is the efficacy of continuing to be in an international body like the United Nations if it does not actually, if it's not ready to actually stop a genocide from taking place? And I know that this body, the 57 countries, are in essence accepted a state of learned helplessness and learned powerlessness at this particular time. But it points that they witnessed the destruction of Iraq, the destruction in Libya, the destruction in Afghanistan. You could speak of the Uyghur, you could speak of the development in Sudan and other places. So at what point that this large body, which is almost 1/3 of the membership of this body, the United Nations, at one point does it actually determine that this body, as a body with all its agencies, is not addressing the basic need, and the basic need is to prevent the death and destruction of a group. In here is the Palestinian. So we'll wait and see in the next today and tomorrow what the World Court hearings and proceedings will be like. There will be actually having a live broadcast from it, and we'll encourage people to look forward to seeing what is the testimonies that are coming out from it, and we will wait and see what will be the determination of the World Court. It's definitely, we need to continue to work. We continue to call for immediate unconditional ceasefire. I'm comforted that today the San Francisco Board of Supervisors voted 8-3 on a resolution calling for immediate ceasefire at this conflict. And this is taken place at a grassroots nationally, that these votes and these city councils, counties, and various political bodies are making this determination, seeing and witnessing the failures at the political leadership, at the higher level of political leadership, meaning the president, Congress, and Senate in the US, but other places. So this is very positive that it's took place. It started here in the city of Richmond in California, which is very were the first to actually issue a very strong resolution on ceasefire. Oakland and other cities, and now San Francisco have joined. So there are positive work. We encourage also people to participate in the National March on Washington, D.C., that is being organized by American Muslims for Palestine, as well as the Palestine Task Force, with various large and national organizations, Muslim organization, ICNA, MAS, the U.S. Council of Muslim Organization, Answer Coalition, and almost 200 other groups. So Saturday, it will be in D.C. If you're in the West Coast, join the march and rally on San Francisco Civic Center at 1 p.m. in order to make an impact at this particular time. So thank you for joining me. If you liked what I have covered, make sure to share it and to ask people to comment on this particular video. And we still are really inspired by the leadership that has come out from South Africa. The last settler colony to be dismantled in Africa is leading the way in taking Israel as a settler colonial project in Asia into the International Court of Justice. So even in the midst of difficulty and hardship, we are inspired by the leadership, the strength, and the moral compass of South Africa. So hopefully until next time, I'll see you.